Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Alright guys, I'm back and it is Sunday, August 23rd, and it's 9:04 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well. We are going to get into the news tonight, and hopefully this is going to be a 2-video night, at least. So I've certainly got enough stuff for 2, if not 3 videos. So let's get at her. But first, let me thank a few people that I need to thank, and donated via coffee, Teresa, and I love this name, let me tell you. I love this moniker, Xander's Best Virtual Buddy. Well, I told Xander that he had a best virtual buddy, and he was quite delighted over it. So, also, we had some people increase their pledge on Patreon, and we have one new Patreon subscriber, Cheryl Ray Weidenbeck, or Wiedenbeck. I'm not sure exactly how she pronounces that, but thank you very much, Cheryl. Also, Tanya Nair, Rebecca Faribault, and Brenda Batty increased their pledge. So thank you so much. I so appreciate it, especially during this time when pledges are down and everything is down because of, well, I think everybody is going through a difficult time right now. There's no doubt about that. All right, well, let's jump into the news. I do apologize. I meant to bring you something last night, and I recorded it all, or at least I thought I did. And then when I went to shut off the recording, I realized it was already off and hadn't been recording. So I apologize for that. I don't know. That seems to happen to me a lot, and I don't know why. It just kind of shuts off at some point. Anyway, let's just dive into the news here, and we've got a bunch of everything as usual, in no particular order. Now, this made me particularly sad, and I guess because it's part of a bigger story right now that's happening in California. I've heard there's over 600 fires, and that is astronomical. And let me tell you, from the things that I've seen, it seems like the same deal as the Paradise fires, that it is directed energy weapons. That's what it looks like to me, because how do you get homes burnt right to the foundation, nothing left, but the trees around are still nice and green? I don't get that. Anyway, let's take a look at this news article. California man, 81, reveals how he spent 30 years building his dream house before it was burnt to ashes this week in one of the state's biggest wildfires on record. Hank Hansen lost everything in the devastating blazes that continue to rip through the Golden State. He told me how he and his wife fled from their home in Vacaville, or it could be Vacaville. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that. Moments later, the LNU lightning complex fires destroyed it. I worked on it for 30 years. It was pretty nice, he said of his home. Only the 81-year-old's tomato plants were left unscathed. The elderly man said he won't rebuild it because I wouldn't want to do it on a lesser scale, and I don't got time to top the old one. So I think that's very sad that people are losing their homes. And, you know, everything that a home means to people, you know, it's their safety, their security, the place where they feel themselves. And I think it is so tragic when somebody loses a home, because there's things that can't be replaced. I know there's people that say, oh, it's just material stuff. Well, no, actually, it's not. There's photo albums and things like that, you know, families share, and they're lost forever. So yeah, it's very, very tragic. California man 81 has revealed how he spent 30 years building his dream house before it was burnt to ashes this week in one of the state's biggest wildfires on record. Hank Hansen is one of hundreds of homeowners and residents who have lost everything in the devastating blazes that continue to rip through the Golden State. He told how he and his wife fled for their lives from their homes in Vacaville Wednesday morning, just moments before the LNU lightning complex fires destroyed it, leaving his tomato plants the only thing unscathed. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to show this to you is, one, because it's part of the bigger story, but two, the pictures kind of caught my eye. And look at these pictures. Yeah, there's his house, all right? And there is absolutely nothing salvageable there. Everything is just ashes. I mean, there is literally nothing left. So how did the house burn that ferociously? That, I mean, that was a voracious fire, obviously. And yet, look at this little bush that was beside his house. It seems fine. And look at the trees back here. You can tell that they may have got a little bit of heat, but they're perfectly intact, as is this tree. But you would think with a fire that hot and that big that those trees would be burned up as well, or at least dead. But no, and this is what we see time and time again with these fires. Everything looks fine. In fact, I remember seeing a picture from the air of one particular place, and it may have been I can't remember where the fire was. It was in California last year. Anyway, you look down and there's all these dots where houses used to be, just completely black. And then the grass and everything's fine. The mailboxes are still there. Everything's fine. But the cars are burnt in the driveway too. But the grass isn't burned at all. How does that happen? I'd like to know, really, because I've never seen that in my entire life. And I bet you haven't either. So let's come down here and look at a couple of these pictures. And here is another picture. Notice all the way around, like it burnt right down to the foundation and below everything. I mean, there is nothing left. I mean, I don't even see a fridge and stove standing. That's how hot it burned. Now, usually in a fire, you've got things left over, like your fridge and your stove, your bathtub, things like that don't burn generally. I mean, they may, but it takes a very hot fire. And yet there's nothing of that left at all. Just basically soot and ashes. And obviously this ladder was put there to climb down in there. He was probably trying to salvage anything he could, but it's quite evident that he's not going to be able to salvage anything from that. And that is incredibly sad. And here again is another picture. And look at his patio table, not even touched. Now, it could be that somebody put that for him there, so he'd have a place to sit. He certainly doesn't have a home left, but just very odd. It says he looks at artificial flowers that remain standing as the LNU lightning complex fires destroyed his Vacaville home. So yeah, look at those plastic chairs. Do you know how much it takes to burn a plastic chair? Not much. So the plastic chairs didn't even suffer heat damage. Wow. Yeah, something's up with these fires, and I think we're quite aware of that. And I guess that is his, looks like a tractor. But again, here we see that molten, remember we saw that, well, we've seen it in the 9/11 fires where, it actually melted the steel and everything else. And here we have this, and you often see this in these kind of fires. Like the tires melt off, everything just runs like a liquid. Very unusual, if you ask me. Hansen told how he and his wife fled for their lives from their home in Vacaville Wednesday morning, just moments before the LNU lightning complex fires destroyed it. Yeah, so that looks like an old car. A relative goes through the remains of the home. More than 13,700 firefighters are battling the blazes, the most severe of which are focused in Northern California, west of the state capital, in Sacramento, and east of the San Francisco Bay. Just very, very, I mean, it's terrifying. Do you imagine living there? And I don't believe for a minute, yes, I know, some fires are caused naturally, yeah, anyway, let's go on here. And I admit, yeah, there are some naturally occurring fires, no doubt, but these aren't them. These are not them. So let's, whoops, that's not where we need to be. We need to be over here. All right, let's go on. Now, this was in the news yesterday, so I should have brought it to you yesterday. But let me tell you, this honestly, is the most bizarre news item I've seen in a very, very long time. And as you can imagine, I've seen a lot of strange news in my lifetime. So let's take a look. It's going to be hard to believe if you haven't seen this before. Fake hate. Black Democrat faked and filmed her own beating and kidnapping. What the hell? And she did it for votes. She even posted it online. Now, there should be punishment for this type of behavior, really. Just like Jussie Smollett, who tied up the police looking into a non-event, something that never happened. Let me see. Should she not be held accountable for this? Anyway, let's go on. I know this is one of those stories that make you go like, what? Yeah, it's getting bad out there. Best fake hate ever. Democrat Sabrina Belcher faked her own beating and kidnapping, complete with sound effects and a running car in order to win sympathy votes. Don't think it's going to work. Sabrina was arrested after the stunt. Good. She needed to be arrested. And this is her. She was running for a mayor, and hopefully it'll tell us of where. So this is Sabrina Belcher. And Belcher even posted the video of her beating and kidnapping on Facebook Live. Well, isn't that special? Sumter mayoral candidate fakes kidnapping. Yeah, so she was applying for a mayor and or campaigning as mayor. Yeah, so glad she's not going to be the mayor. So let's take a look at this.
Developing tonight out of Sumter, police say a mayoral candidate faked a kidnapping attempt in a video she posted online. Investigators say Sabrina Belcher staged the kidnapping and had someone fake a beating to try and get sympathy and more votes in the November election. Officers say Belcher called them Tuesday night, saying she was assaulted and kidnapped during an attempted robbery. Belcher is charged with filing a false police report. Christopher James Edie is charged with conspiracy.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about that is the one that I saw, I guess, was probably the original one that was streamed to YouTube, and half of her top was ripped off and her breasts were falling out. Not that anybody wanted to look at them, but yeah. And I had to say to myself, really? This woman thinks that she's a good candidate for mayor? Wow. Talk about delusional. Anyway, let's go on here. You got to give her credit on her acting skills. Anything for a vote. Sumner police say Sabrina Belcher staged her own kidnapping and beating to get publicity, sympathy, and votes in the November election. Yeah. Police have arrested a Democratic candidate in South Carolina for allegedly filming a fake kidnapping of herself to win votes while running for mayor, reports the state. Authorities charged Sabrina Belcher with conspiracy as well as filing a false police report following the fake kidnapping. She was filmed being robbed, beaten, and kidnapped on Tuesday in a video on Facebook Live. And according to the state, Belcher arranged the whole incident in order to get sympathy before the election. Right. Well, didn't work. Didn't work. I know. It's getting bizarre out there, isn't it? Really bizarre. Okay, let's go back now and see what other trouble we can get into. I'm sure we can get into lots. So let's look at this. Yes. Let's look at this. Antifa are smashing the windows of every storefront in Denver, Colorado. I also heard that they were starting fires, which, generally they break the windows and then they loot and they start fires. That's their MO. Anyway, let's take a look at this. I'll make it bigger for you tiny phone people. Always love my tiny phone people. Okay. So So it's not, I mean, it's very short. Anyway, that's what's going on in Denver, Colorado. Now, if there are any listeners in Denver that want to chime in the comments, let us know what is happening there, because you are there and we are not. So I think we would all appreciate that. And let's go on. And this is a website that I'm growing very, very fond of. It's globalresearch.ca. Obscene pandemic profiteering, largest consolidation of wealth in American history. While the lockdown triggers unemployment, poverty, and despair, the wealth of the 12 richest Americans has increased by $283 billion, an increase of almost 40%. Well, I'm sure that makes you guys that are sitting there without food on the table and the ability to pay rent and power. It's called hydro up here, and I got back into the habit of saying hydro. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there are people going hungry. Yes, in this country, there are people going hungry right now that can't afford bills. They can't afford anything because, maybe their place of employment is shut down, or maybe they've been laid off, or whatever. Maybe their place of employment has been looted and burned. Who knows? Anyway, it's nice to know that the 12 richest Americans are getting even richer. According to the Institute for Policy Studies, since March 18th, the beginning of the pandemic, the 12 richest Americans have seen their combined wealth increase $283 billion, an increase of almost 40%. Those 12 people primarily benefited from the two-party unanimously approved CARES Act, which was unprecedented looting of taxpayer wealth under the guise of being a taxpayer relief bill. Meanwhile, poverty, debt, hunger, depression, and suicide rates have all skyrocketed, primarily because tens of millions of people have had their livelihoods destroyed by mandated government policies. In response to all this, Congress has now gone on an extended vacation without doing anything to help their constituencies survive or recover from the direct policies that they enacted, and that is true. And here's the other thing. I do believe that Trump is going to circumvent them and go ahead with the stimulus anyway. That's what I understand from what I read yesterday, unless anything has changed. So let's go on here. Meet the oligarchic 12, despotic dozens. Numbers measured in billions of dollars. Name, wealth now. So this is the name, and then their wealth that they had on March 18th, and the wealth that they have now, and the gain. So let's go through this. Jeff Bezos. He had $113 billion in March, and he now has $189 billion now in August, and that is an increase of $76 billion. And Bill Gates, he had $98 billion. He now has $114 billion. That's an increase of $16 billion in just a matter of months, right? In what, 5 months? March, April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, 5 months. 5 months. Wouldn't that be lovely if we could have 76 billion or 16 billion in a matter of 5 months? Wow, I think we'd be happy. Yeah, we really would be. Well, actually I say that, but I don't really mean it, because money certainly does not buy happiness. Mark Zuckerberg, 55 billion. He now has 96 billion. So he has gained over this whole coronavirus, span of 5 months. He's gained $41 billion. Warren Buffett, he had 68 billion. He now has 81. He's gained 13 billion. Elon Musk, he had 25 billion. He now has 73 billion, and he has increased his wealth by 48 billion in a matter of 5 months. Steve Ballmer, 53 billion. He now has 71. He's increased his wealth by 18 billion. Larry Ellison, he's increased his wealth by 12 billion. Larry Page, 16 billion. Sergey Brin has increased his wealth by 17 billion. Alice Walton, she's increased her wealth by 9 billion. Jim Walton, 7 billion increase. Rob Walton, 8 billion increase. Now, the Waltons, of course, got rich because there was a while there where there was no place else open except Walmart. Didn't want to close down Walmart. Oh gosh, no. They wanted to close down all the mom and pop places, and that's what they did, and that is who is suffering. It's not these big corporations and conglomerations that are suffering right now. It's mom and pop places. And when you look at what has closed up and moved on, it's all mom and pop shops. And those are what we don't need to lose. Because that, these are people in our local communities that have worked hard, opened a business, and, they're gone. A lot of them. I mean, even around here, I see business after business after business being shut down. People can't stay open. It's too difficult, and especially restaurants. They're not allowed to. They can only have like a small capacity, and I mean, still, people are not eating out because of fear, which is more deadly than the virus. And it says, never let a crisis go to waste. Do you grasp how unprecedented and obscene this is? For the richest people to increase their net worth by 40% over such a short time while the country is in quarantine and the economy is locked down is a crime against humanity. While 56.2 million workers sought unemployment aid during a pandemic, these people experienced the greatest wealth increase rate ever. Both parties are completely on board with all of this, while children are starving, while tens of millions of people are buried in debt that they will never get out of. Our political class is vacationing, cruising on yachts, and playing golf while Rome burns. Wake up, America. Both parties have thrown us overboard. This coming election will be a logistical fiasco, disaster that will emphatically prove our corrupted failure state status to those who are still in denial. The election will result in further chaos, confusion, and division. I'm afraid that I do believe that because, the country is so divided now that it doesn't matter what happens. If Trump doesn't get in, the rest of everyone, really, most of the country is going to realize that the election was stolen, right? So there's going to be unrest, but there's going to be unrest if Donald Trump gets in as well, because we see that the left are a bunch of whining, sniveling malcontents that just whine and cry over everything. So we know that they will have their little toddler temper tantrums and go and loot and burn and believe that they're owed everything. They'll just break in and take it. So, but what I don't believe, I don't know if both parties are necessarily on board with this. I believe that Trump is going along with it because he knows that if he doesn't, everybody will just be, could you imagine if Trump stood up and said, look, we're not having any more lockdown. Well, then the other side would come back with more faked COVID numbers, and you know how it goes. It's all a game, And I'm beginning to believe when Q said this is a movie, well, I believe it now. I believe it. We are watching a movie. It's all scripted. So anyway, I'm not going to read more of that, but I wanted to let you know that the United States richest people are just getting richer during this fake pandemic, and the rest, well, they're hurting. Not fair at all. All right, now let's go back and go on to the next. And this sounds a little bit frightening to me. If you are living in Virginia, Virginia Health Commissioner, if COVID vaccine comes, I will make it mandatory. So there you go. You've been warned. If you live in Virginia, you've been warned. I would not take that vaccine no matter what. All right. Most Americans haven't heard of the Supreme Court case, Jacobson versus Massachusetts. They're about to. There's no vaccine for the novel coronavirus yet, but heaven willing, there will be, and soon. The problem is that a potential vaccine is likely to be controversial, and not just because of anti-vaxxers or people who harbor curious opinions about the motives of Bill and Melinda Gates. That would be me. While most vaccines are developed and tested over a period of years, this one is being rushed out to be available as soon as possible. That's going to lead to the disbelief, not unfounded, that there might be health risks associated with it that we don't know about yet. There's also going to be questions about its efficacy, particularly since the vaccine almost certainly won't be anywhere near 100% effective. This isn't to say you shouldn't receive a coronavirus vaccine. Yeah, it is to say don't. Barring serious concerns, this writer will certainly be getting one. Well, that writer maybe, but I won't be. However, he also understands why people wouldn't get it and why the government forcing people to get it is a bad idea, particularly when you consider the implications if something goes wrong. Virginia Commissioner of Health, Dr. Norman Oliver, isn't necessarily a believer in that philosophy. He thinks a COVID-19 vaccine should be mandatory for residents of the Old Dominion. If the coronavirus is killing people now, we don't have a treatment for it, and if we we do have a treatment for it, and I think just about everybody on the planet knows that. If we develop a vaccine that can prevent it from spreading in the community, we will save hundreds and hundreds of lives, Dr. Oliver told WRIC-TV. Virginia state law gives the Commissioner of Health the authority to mandate immediate immunizations during a public health crisis if a vaccine is available. The Richmond, Virginia ABC affiliate reported Friday health officials say an immunization could be available as early as 2021. Given that there aren't elections in Virginia until November of 2021, that means if you're in Virginia, you'll either be vaccinated or face a penalty. And if you think this is something that'll go to the Supreme Court, well, it already has in 1905. In 1902, the state of Massachusetts was experiencing a smallpox epidemic. The city of Cambridge, under a state law allowing localities to mandate vaccinations, required all residents to receive inoculations against the disease. Henning Jacobson, a Cambridge minister, refused the order. According to Jacobson versus Massachusetts, the case that bears his name, he refused to submit to vaccination for the reason that he had, when a child, been caused great and extreme suffering for a long period by a disease produced by vaccination, and that he had witnessed a similar result of vaccination not only in the case of his son, but in the case of others. Writing for the High Court's 7-2 ruling, Justice John Marshall Harlan wrote that as to an adult residing in the community and a fit subject for a vaccination, the statute is not invalid as in derogation of any of the rights of such person under the 14th Amendment. The safety and health of the people of Massachusetts are, in the first instance, for that Commonwealth to guard and protect, Harlan wrote. They are matters that do not ordinarily concern the national government. His decision continued, so far as they can be reached by any government, they depend primarily upon such action as the state, in its wisdom, may take, and we do not perceive that this legislation has invaded any right secured by the federal Constitution. It is worth noting that Harlan was no slouch when it came to civil liberties. He's probably best remembered for being the sole dissenter in the High Court's notorious Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896, which established the separate but equal doctrine that formed the backbone of Jim Crow segregation in the South until the Brown versus Board of Education overturned it in 1954. That case only upheld a $5 fine for Jacobson. However, in a 1922 case, the court found the precedent had a wider application. Writing for a unanimous court in Zucht versus King, a case involved a law that mandated children must be vaccinated before attending public school. Justice Louis Brandeis wrote that Jacobson settled that it is within the police power of a state to provide compulsory vaccination, and also settled that a state may, consistently with the federal Constitution, delegate to a municipality authority to determine under what conditions health regulations shall become operative. In short, it's pretty much established case law that the government can force you to get a vaccination or impose a significant penalty on you. The problem comes in when you consider how misinformed the Virginia Commissioner of Health is when it comes to how easy this will all be. For instance, at the moment, the Virginia General Assembly is considering a bill that would allow a religious exemption to any compulsory vaccination, but there are no guarantees. Oliver says he strongly opposes the bill. WRIC reported he doesn't know what the punishment would be for non-compliance, but expects that most people will respond well to the mandate. Well, I have news for him. I don't think most people will respond well to compulsory vaccinations. I don't think people will respond well at all. On August 7th, Gallup published the results of an online tracking survey conducted among 7,632 respondents between July 2nd and July 20th and August 2nd regarding what percentage of American adults would be willing to receive a vaccine for the coronavirus. Only 65% said they would. What's news, however, isn't how low that number is, it's how high it is in relation to other surveys. Consider a Yahoo News YouGov survey administered online during the same period. It is somewhat more limited in scope, consisting of 1,506 adults surveyed between July 28th and 30th. However, it still found only 42% would get the vaccine. And this isn't just a matter of, as liberals might think, truculent Americans who refuse to wear masks. Consider Dr. Natalie Dean, assistant professor of biostatistics at the University of Florida. In an opinion piece for the New York Times, she wrote that signing on to take a vaccine before it was available was foolish. I'm a vaccine researcher, and even I would place myself in the not sure bucket, she wrote in the August 3rd piece. What we have right now is a collection of animal data, immune response data, and safety data based on early trials and from similar vaccines for other diseases. That evidence, the evidence that would convince me to get a COVID-19 vaccine or to recommend that to my loved ones gets vaccinated does not yet exist. But people will respond well to this, right? This may be legally and constitutionally sound. Whether it's morally sound is a different question. And this won't stay hypothetical for long. All right, well, that is, it says, when a vaccine comes along, Dr. Oliver and the state of Virginia are going to discover the carrot of the vaccine is going to require an awfully big stick to get people to take it, much bigger than he or anyone else probably imagined. And when that happens, we're going to find out exactly the kind of divisive, unenforceable hell Dr. Oliver has signed Virginia up for. So, heads up, if you're in Virginia or you have loved ones in Virginia, be aware. All right, let's go on now, because we can, and we will. All right, let's look at this. It says, watch, Portland rioters bring guillotine, burn American flags. I don't know about you, but there is something. So it makes my stomach literally feel sick when I see an American flag burning. I think it is the height of disrespect. And really, if you're in America and you are burning the American flag, why don't you just leave? If you don't like America, leave. I mean, I just don't get it. They're all for getting all the rights and the freedoms of Americans, but yet, you know, they hate it. So, yeah, there's a guillotine. Rioters in Portland, Oregon brought a guillotine to a violent demonstration overnight Saturday into Sunday, according to the Portland Police Bureau. Someone rolled a mock guillotine with a stuffed bear into the street. The bear and multiple U.S. flags were burned. Paint balloons were launched at officers as well as green lasers, the police said in a press statement early Sunday morning. And this is Andy No, who has done a wonderful job of covering all of this. Portland riots. Antifa showing the public a visual representation of their political agenda. They put U.S. flags on the guillotine prop and set all of it on fire outside the Southeast Police building. So let's look at this. And I heard also that at one of these riots, they bludgeoned a raccoon to death. Why? These people have no regard for life, whether it's human or animal. So I really would hope people would keep their animals home where they belong. I mean, the raccoon obviously, wasn't somebody's pet, but yeah, it's just absolutely disgusting. So let's look down here. It was only the latest provocation after riots that began during the day and lasted through the night. Earlier in the day, there were violent clashes and battles with pepper spray between left-wing Antifa and right-wing Proud Boys in the streets of the city. Police lacked the resources to intervene. Gee, I wonder why they lack the resources. Maybe because everyone is defunding the police department? It's happening all over. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. It's happening in Democrat cities. All right. So, mass Antifa versus right-wing brawl at the Justice Center in downtown Portland. Numerous conservative groups held a pro-police rally, but it was crashed by Antifa, who threw eggs, rock, feces, and urine. Both sides pepper sprayed each other for more than an hour. Wow. Can you imagine throwing feces and urine at people? Yeah. That might even be more dangerous than not wearing a mask. Just saying. Another angle of the Antifa versus right-wing brawl in Portland. I suppose you want to see some of this. Well, all right. This has been going on for how long? And nobody's able to stop it? Really? Yeah. And here's the other thing. I don't believe for a minute that those are Trump supporters that are clashing with Antifa. I just don't. I think that this is planned, and I think that they want to make Trump supporters look like crazy people. That's what I think. And they want to make them look like they are violent, because that is the narrative that they're putting forth, that anyone that follows Q is violent and a white supremacist. Yeah, that's the narrative that they're going with. They just lie and lie and lie. In fact, I think probably most of what we hear is not even factual. I really don't think so. Now, there are people that I support that I believe are giving good information, like Andy No. He is doing a fabulous job. There are other alt-wing conservative people that are independent journalists that are doing a wonderful job. But for the most part, we can't tell anymore. And I think that that's the way they wanted it. They want us to not be able to believe anything we're seeing or hearing, because we're just in a state of perpetual, upheaval. We don't know. All right. Let's go on from there, because we can. And let's take a look at what else we have here. Well, let's look at this. Michelle Obama's necklace from DNC speech goes instantly viral. Gee, I can't imagine why. Could it be this Mike spelled out on her necklace? Now, my name is Michelle. I would never consider wearing a necklace that said Mike on it, unless I happen to be dating a Mike, maybe. But yeah, so I think that they are right in our face with it. I do. I think they're right in our face with it, because that is as plain as the nose on your face. M-I-K-E. Why would she wear Mike? Yeah. They're just right in your face with it. Right in your face. They're not even hiding. They're not hiding anything anymore. All right, let's look at this, shall we? I think we shall. Somali migrant torched churches as revenge for a Quran being burned. Yeah. Somali migrant has admitted to setting 2 Norwegian churches on fire earlier this year, claiming that he committed the arson attacks as revenge for a burning of a copy of the Quran late last year. The man in his 20s pled guilty to the 2 fires in Donbass and at Cell, which was the first fire spreading to the spire of the church and doing serious damage. The man said the acts were revenge for burning of a Quran in the city of Kristiansand by the group Stop Islamization of Norway, which ended in violence after counter-protesters jumped barricades and fought with members of the group. According to a report from broadcaster NRK, the Somali migrant was identified based on DNA evidence that was gathered at the scenes of both arson attacks. So, says Norway anti-Islam group slammed after violence at Quran burning event. And, now, really, they're burning the Quran. I mean, you could pretty much expect violence after that. Not that I'm excusing the Somali migrant at all. I'm not. But, yeah, the remains of a trouser were found at... I've never heard a trouser as a singular thing. It's always trousers. You know, you have a pair of trousers, right? You never say the remains of a trouser. That's a very strange thing to say, but regardless, I'll go on. The remains of a trouser were found at the church with the defendant's DNA on it. The same thing happened at Cell Church. A bottle with the defendant's fingerprints was also found there. Prosecutor Lars Ringvik said the migrant, who came to Sweden at the height of the migrant crisis in 2015, confessed his guilt to investigators during his first interrogation, saying he smashed a window to the church and threw inflammable liquid inside, followed by lit matches. Afterwards, I considered going to the police station to report, but then I thought my life would be finished, the Somali said. He claimed to have He claimed he had seen. I'm telling you, what did I say? All the editors have gone. They fled the planet. He's seen a Quran burning on television. I started checking and found that the person who had set fire to the Quran had not been punished. Then I got angry. I'm a Muslim. I don't like someone trampling on my religion because I respect the religion of others, he said. Yeah, he respected the religion of others so much that he burnt down 2 churches. There you go. Despite the fact he attempted to burn down 2 churches. Yeah, right. I don't call that respecting other people's religions. I don't know. Call me nuts. So, Norway looks to strip 1,600 migrants of refugee status, send them back to Somalia. I'd like to send a few refugees in, I can think of one in particular I'd like to send back to Somalia. I think everybody probably feels the same way. Anyway, the church at Donbass is said to have suffered 20 million Norwegian krone, which is 1.7 million pounds or 2.2 million in damages as a result of the fire. The migrant's admission of guilt comes just weeks after another migrant, a Rwanda man, set fire to Nantes Cathedral in France. Yeah, they love burning churches. Really, they really do. I don't know. I think that when they all get together and think, what are we going to do this weekend? I think they just say, well, I don't know, maybe burn a church. Yeah. So the 39-year-old had been a volunteer at the cathedral before deciding to set it on fire. Cathedral staff initially defended him, saying they could not believe he would have had anything to do with the attack, but he eventually confessed his responsibility to law enforcement. So, and this is the Rwandan migrant, previously held and released over Nantes Cathedral fire, admits arson. All right, well, there you go. And let's go on, because there's more. There's always more. Let's look at this. I think we probably all know this, but it's good to, keep it in mind. Hang on. Cheers. All right. Bombshell. Antifa was imported to America from Europe by the Obama-Biden administration to forge domestic terrorism alliance with Black Lives Matter, new report alleges. Gee, surprise! Scores of Americans have been angered and sickened by the nonstop violence and thuggery in our nation's biggest cities that have been occurring all summer long, and their patience is running out. After the George Floyd incident in May, most of us were rightly indignant over the behavior of a handful of police officers in Minneapolis, and we could also understand the massive protests that took place for weeks immediately following that incident. But those protests were summarily hijacked by left-wing Marxist anarchists who couldn't care less about George Floyd. It's become obvious by now that two groups are primarily responsible for the violence, looting, theft, and destruction, as well as the harebrained defund the police movement that is rolling through our biggest cities, Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Well, it turns out that this mayhem not only isn't random, but it was planned in advance. And the Obama-Biden administration had a huge hand in it. Woo, surprise. And wouldn't you know it, Ukraine plays a big role in all of this. Well, doesn't it always? Investigative journalist George Eliasson, an American who is currently living in Ukraine, has connected a lot of dots implicating the previous administration in a sinister plot to disrupt the civil society in America and not only drive President Donald Trump from office, but also usher in a form of government that, were they alive today, our founders would once again rebel against. Big League Politics notes, a stunning report is indicating that the Obama administration imported foreign terrorists to the U.S. in preparation for the Antifa Black Lives Matter uprising that is currently laying waste to America's cities. Ukraine-based independent journalist George Eliasson published the bombshell report on Tuesday, alleging that the foreign terrorists were brought overseas due to the scheming of former President Barack H. Obama and CIA Director John Brennan. No surprises there. It is an American problem caused by the former Obama-Biden administration's continuing coup against the presidency of Donald Trump, Eliasson writes of the Antifa Black Lives Matter terror uprising. Eliasson says that Antifa terrorists were trained by real terrorists in Syria, part of the Kurd-led neo-Marxist force. He went on to say that because Antifa is part of an insurgency grand force with provable foreign government representation and foreign insurgents from terrorist groups, they can't be covered under the Geneva Conventions. After a thorough analysis of Antifa's official website, Eliasson identified Ben Utzer, who Eliasson describes as Antifa's German pirate party chubby, never miss a meal, pasty white leader of the boots on the ground Obama-Biden Antifa BLM insurrection. I like that. Well written. Utzer is the German directing the traffic for American Antifa seditionists willing to murder and destroy their own cities for a foreign hacker Politico who owns a little security company and loves dogs, he wrote. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and other groups were brought in to create funnel catching disenfranchised people from across the spectrum, bringing them under one umbrella for the IO coup project. This is how the manpower problem for sedition was tackled, he added. President Trump and U.S. Attorney General William Barr may also be on to the Black Lives Matter Antifa connection. Earlier this summer, both of them called out Antifa, at least as a terrorist organization, with Trump saying he was considering designating the group as such. If he does that, that opens up a lot more legal possibilities for his administration to explore. Charging a rider for violating state anti-rioting laws is one thing, but charging a rider attacking federal agents with domestic terrorism is something else entirely. The latter resulting in more hard time in prison. The violence, the editors are gone, so I have to kind of edit on the fly here, I guess. The violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and other similar groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly, Barr said in late May. Hopefully, the reported connection to the Obama-Biden regime will be addressed as well. And I pray that it is, because we all know this didn't just happen organically. These groups didn't just spring up because of George Floyd's death. We know that. None of this is about George Floyd. Maybe the very, very first protests, maybe, but yeah, people are concerned with, destroying buildings, looting, burning, violence. That's what they're concerned with. And none of that helps George Floyd, nor does it help his memory at all. So, all right, well, we don't have much time left in this video, but I will be doing a second one. But let's fit in a couple more here so that I'll be able to cover, because we have a lot. All right, let's just go here and take a look at this. Unsolved murder-suicides in northwest England could be the work of serial killer, report suggests. Now, this isn't really anything to do with political news, but it is interesting. I don't know. I thought you might be interested. Cold case killings show signs of individual at work, says coroner's office report. Serial killer could be responsible for the murders of a string of elderly couples in the northwest of England, according to a leaked coroner's report. The report, seen by the Sunday Times, raises the prospect that the killing of two elderly couples in Wilmslow, Cheshire, may have been the work of an unknown offender who could still be at large. Why are they always at large? Why aren't they, I don't know, at small? I don't know why they're always at large. The deaths of Howard and B. Ainsworth and Donald and Ariel Ward took place in 1996 and 1999 and had been considered unconnected murder-suicides. In both cases, the husband had been thought to have murdered their wives before killing themselves. That's bad grammar. But after re-examining the cases using modern techniques, the report finds both cases were likely to be double murders. I must be a horrible racist, because weren't they saying that using good grammar or proper grammar is racist? I must be the worst racist on the face of the earth if that is the case. Anyway, in both cases, similarities in the method of killing and the positioning of the bodies are signs of signature behavior of a serial killer, argues Stephanie Davies, coroner's office for Cheshire, in the report. This individual will not stop killing until someone or something stops him. He will have meticulously planned each murder, ensured he left no forensic evidence, and followed the cases in the media, the report is quoted as saying. In addition, Ms. Davies believed the attacks were out of character, as there were no history of domestic violence or psychiatric illness in either case, the Sunday Times reports. A further 3 murder-suicides taking place between 2000 and 2011 in Greater Manchester and Cumbria were also identified for review in the report. In each case, the husbands were thought to have murdered their wives before killing themselves. Cheshire Police have this weekend launched a review of the report's findings. A spokesperson for Cheshire Police told the Sunday Times, "We are in receipt of the report and it is being reviewed. This is a piece of research which has been undertaken by the staff member independently. As with any case that has been closed where new information comes to light, it is reviewed and acted upon if appropriate. We have notified Greater Manchester Police and Cumbria Constabulary. All right. Well, that is interesting. And actually, I hope, if it is the case of a serial killer, that they catch them, because they also want to clear these people's names. I mean, if you are the husband and you haven't done anything wrong and it was a serial killer that killed you and your wife or your family, then your name needs to be cleared for obvious reasons. All right, let's go on from that and let's look at this. Yes, this. Her name is Billie Eilish. She is a singer. Now, I'm not sure because in the pictures that I've seen, she does not look like a female, but here she certainly does. So I don't know. But She is a singer. I don't know too much about her, and nor do I want to. Her name is Billie Eilish. She is a singer. She was invited to speak at the DNC. Why? Who knows? The DNC convention and endorsed Biden. This is a photo she posted on Instagram. Wonderful. Look at that. 666 right on her forehead. Well, no question which side she sides with. Yeah. All right. Okay, you know what? Let's look at this by Kirstie Alley too. Apparently, in this country, at this time, we are only allowed to yield to one doctor. All others throughout the world, including the United States, who disagree with this one mandated expert are deemed quacks. Keep speaking out, sir. Most of us hear you, and thank you. And she is responding to President Donald Trump, who said many doctors and studies disagree with this. And of course, it is about HCQ. Of course. Now, let's look at, let me see, I think I have time for one more. Antifa threw feces-filled balloons at police Friday night. Now, we heard that they threw feces and urine, but they filled balloons with their feces. That is disgusting. They probably blew them up too after they filled them, whatever, who knows. These people are sick. These people are mongrels. Well, there's something. Antifa threw feces-filled balloons at Portland police during riot Friday night. Yeah, that's pretty disgusting. You can see, I guess, all balloons splatter? I don't know. I'll just leave that there. So that's all, I guess. Let me see. I can do another one. Let me make sure that this is still recording, and it is. Thank the good Lord. And I mean that sincerely. And I mean the good Lord, not the other one. All right, and let's look at this, because this is very, very important. Very important. UN food chief warns famine of biblical proportions due to COVID-19 response. Now, I happen to believe this, and I happen to believe that this was the plan all along, to bankrupt small mom and pop businesses, to put them out of business, to increase unemployment, to increase, to increase the, I don't know what you call it, despair, despondency of people worldwide. And I believe that it will lead to a global famine of epic proportions. Because look at what's just happened in America. The corn, just about all the corn and the soybean crops have been wiped out. This is happening worldwide. Look at the flooding in China. It's worldwide. All right, the COVID-19 pandemic may lead to a calamity of epic scale, with millions facing starvation worldwide, the head of the UN's hunger-fighting body has warned. All data we have, including a WFP forecast that the number of people experiencing malnutrition will grow by 80% by the end of the year, points to a real disaster. David Beasley, executive director of the UN World Food Program, WEP, said, or WFP, not WEP. We are risking a famine of biblical proportions. The rapid increase in the number of people who can't feed themselves will be just an immediate outcome of the pandemic, which caused a disruption of food growth and logistics worldwide. More long-term damage is bound to materialize in the years to come. Obviously, social tensions will grow, migration will increase, conflicts will escalate, and hunger will likely affect those who didn't experience it before, the official told the Russian news agency TASS. WFP projections say Latin American nations face the most dramatic change in their situation, with the number of malnourished people increasing by as much as 269%, Beasley said. The same metric for countries in Eastern and Central Asia stand at 135%. Sub-Saharan Africa may see the number of their hungry almost double. Global hunger is already high, Beasley warned. Unless bold action is taken now, many will die. Children will suffer from the consequences of malnutrition for many years, and the world will lose all the progress made in fighting hunger over the past decade, he said. Depopulation through famine caused by lockdowns. Global lockdowns set to plunge 100 million into extreme poverty, and UN says hundreds of thousands of children will die in 2020 due to economic depression. The price of inaction will be incredibly high. This year, some 138 million people in 83 countries rely on WFP for their food supply, the official said. For many of them, the UN humanitarian body is the last hope for survival. In South Sudan, 1.6 million people were added this year to the 5 million already requiring assistance. In Yemen, the WFP feeds 13 million. The situation in Lebanon became particularly grim after a devastating blast 2 weeks ago in Beirut. The explosion not only destroyed stockpiles of grain, but also cut supply chains because the damaged port was used to deliver some 85% of the food that Lebanon needs. Beasley called on international donors to provide additional funding to the organization to deal with the looming disaster. The WFP needs $4.9 billion over the next 6 months to keep its humanitarian programs running. Well, why not ask one of the 12 richest men in America? I mean, they all gained 40% of their wealth. They gained over the last 5 months. Gee, maybe some of them could spare $1 billion here and $1 billion there. I'm just saying. And, you know, isn't it awful that they shut down the world, well, just about the world, and this is the result for a virus that kills under 1% of the people who catch it. Yeah. So, wonder how many people will die needlessly over this COVID scam. Yeah. All right, I'm going to leave it there. That's a good place to stop for now. Maybe there'll be a little good news in the next video. We can only hope. So that is it, and I am going to end this here. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will be back with another video. So, all right. You guys stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and thank you so much for listening. Good night.